We live in an age where communication has never been easier or more constant, yet somehow we have also never been more disconnected from the people who matter most in our lives. Our phones are always within arm's reach, buzzing and beeping and demanding our attention with an endless stream of notifications that blur together into digital noise we learn to tune out. We scroll through social media for hours, but cannot find 10 minutes to call someone back. We text quick responses that say nothing real while avoiding actual conversations that require vulnerability and presence. We have 1,000 ways to stay connected, but we use most of them to stay comfortably distant, to maintain relationships at a surface level that does not demand too much of our time or emotional energy. Most of the time, this works fine. Most of the messages we ignore are not urgent. Most of the calls we send to voicemail can wait another day without any serious consequences. We operate under the comfortable assumption that everyone understands we are busy, that modern life is hectic and overwhelming, that the people who care about us will be patient and forgiving when we take days or weeks to respond to their attempts at connection. We tell ourselves that relationships are resilient, that true bonds can withstand neglect, that there will always be time later to catch up properly when life calms down and we have more mental and emotional bandwidth to give to the people we love. But every once in a while, in ways we cannot predict or prepare for, a missed call turns out to be something more than just another notification to deal with later. Sometimes the person on the other end has something to say that cannot wait, something that needed to be shared in that exact moment, something that will never get another opportunity to be expressed if that particular call goes unanswered. And we have no way of knowing which calls are routine and which ones are life-altering until it is far too late to make a different choice about whether to answer or let it ring through to voicemail. This is the story of Rebecca, a woman who lived her entire life believing she knew exactly who she was and where she came from, until one missed call from exactly 1 month ago turned out to hold a secret so profound that it shattered everything she thought she understood about her family, her identity, and the woman who raised her with love, but also with lies that were finally ready to be exposed after decades of careful concealment. Rebecca was 32 years old, working as an accountant in a mid-sized firm, living alone in a small apartment that she had decorated carefully to reflect her personality and independence. She had a good relationship with her mother, Catherine, or at least she thought she did. They talked on the phone every week or so, brief conversations about work and weather and the mundane details of daily life. They saw each other for holidays and birthdays, maintaining the kind of comfortable but not particularly deep connection that many adult children have with their parents once they have built their own separate lives. Catherine was 61, recently retired from her job as a librarian, spending her days gardening and reading and volunteering at the local community center. She had raised Rebecca alone after Rebecca's father died in a car accident when Rebecca was only 2 years old. At least that was the story Rebecca had been told her entire life. Her father was a man named Michael who had loved them both deeply, but whose life was cut tragically short, leaving Catherine to raise their daughter as a single mother with strength and grace that Rebecca had always admired. Rebecca had no memories of her father, only a few photographs that Catherine kept in an album. Images of a handsome man with kind eyes who Rebecca was told she resembled in certain ways. On a Wednesday afternoon in mid-October, Rebecca was in the middle of a particularly stressful workday, trying to close the books on a complicated audit that had already taken twice as long as it should have. Her phone rang and she glanced down to see her mother's name on the screen. Rebecca's first instinct was to answer, because she always answered when her mother called. But in that moment, she was so deep in spreadsheets and calculations that she made a split-second decision to let it go to voicemail and call back during her lunch break, when she could give her mother her full attention instead of being distracted by work. The phone stopped ringing. Rebecca made a mental note to return the call later, then immediately got pulled back into the audit crisis and completely forgot about it. Hours passed, and she worked through lunch, then stayed late at the office trying to find an error in the numbers that was throwing everything off. By the time she finally got home that evening, she was exhausted and hungry, and her mother's call had been buried under a dozen other notifications and responsibilities that had accumulated throughout the day. Rebecca told herself she would call tomorrow, but tomorrow came with its own set of urgent tasks, and the call kept getting pushed further down her mental priority list. What Rebecca did not know, what she could not possibly have known, was that her mother had been sitting in her living room that Wednesday afternoon, holding her phone with shaking hands, trying to find the courage to finally tell her daughter the truth about who she really was. Catherine had been diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's a few weeks earlier, and the diagnosis had triggered something in her, a desperate need to come clean about the lies she had been carrying for over 30 years, before the disease took away her ability to explain properly. Before she lost the clarity and coherence to have this conversation in a way that Rebecca deserved. Catherine had rehearsed what she would say 100 times. She had written it down and practiced the words until they felt almost natural, though nothing about this conversation would ever feel natural, because how do you tell your adult daughter that everything she believes about her origins is a carefully constructed fiction? How do you explain that you are not actually her biological mother, that you adopted her under circumstances that were complicated and somewhat questionable, that her real mother was your younger sister who got pregnant at 16 and could not handle the responsibility of raising a child? How do you admit that the man Rebecca thinks was her father was actually just a kind neighbor who agreed to pose in photographs to give Rebecca a father figure to believe in, that he had died in a car accident but not as Rebecca's father, because he had never been that in the first place?
Catherine had picked up the phone that Wednesday because she could not carry this secret anymore. Because the Alzheimer's diagnosis made it clear that time was running out for her to tell the truth in a coherent and compassionate way. She had dialed Rebecca's number with her heart pounding and her hands trembling, hoping her daughter would answer, so they could have this difficult conversation before Catherine lost her nerve, or her mind made it impossible. But Rebecca did not answer. The phone rang and then went to voicemail, and Catherine sat there, staring at the screen, trying to decide whether to leave a message. How do you leave a voicemail saying your entire life is a lie? How do you explain something this complicated and this emotionally devastating through a recording? Catherine hung up without leaving a message, telling herself she would try again later, maybe in person. Maybe when she could see Rebecca's face and hold her hand through the shock and anger and confusion that would inevitably come. But as the days passed, Catherine's courage started to fail her. She kept thinking about how hurt Rebecca would be, how betrayed she would feel, how their relationship might never recover from this revelation. She started questioning whether it was even necessary to tell the truth after all these years. Maybe it would be kinder to let Rebecca keep believing the story she had always known. Maybe some secrets were better left buried. A week after that missed call, Catherine's Alzheimer's symptoms suddenly accelerated in a way that shocked her doctors. What had been diagnosed as early-stage disease progressed rapidly into something much more serious. Catherine started having trouble with her memory, with forming coherent thoughts, with recognizing familiar places and sometimes even familiar people. Her sister, Rebecca's biological mother, who had moved across the country years ago and had no contact with Rebecca, flew in to help manage Catherine's care as her condition deteriorated faster than anyone had anticipated. 2 weeks after the missed call, Catherine was moved into a memory care facility because she could no longer safely live alone. Her moments of clarity became fewer and further between. brief windows when she would suddenly seem like herself again, before sliding back into confusion and disorientation. During one of those clear moments, she told her sister about the phone call she had tried to make to Rebecca, about the secret she had failed to share. Her sister promised to tell Rebecca the truth when the time was right, but she was not ready yet. Still processing her own complicated emotions about seeing the daughter she had given up, and trying to figure out how to explain any of this. 3 weeks after the missed call, Rebecca visited her mother in the care facility and barely recognized the woman sitting in the chair by the window. Catherine looked at her with confusion, asked who she was, seemed not to remember that she had a daughter at all. Rebecca left devastated, crying in her car in the parking lot, grieving the loss of her mother, even though Catherine was still technically alive. She could not understand how things had deteriorated so quickly, how they had gone from weekly phone calls about normal life to this nightmare where her mother did not even know who she was anymore. 4 weeks and 2 days after the missed call, Rebecca received a phone call from her aunt, Catherine's sister. A woman Rebecca had met maybe twice in her entire life and had no real relationship with at all. The aunt asked if they could meet for coffee and said she had something important to discuss about Catherine. Rebecca agreed, confused but assuming it was probably about medical decisions or care arrangements or something practical related to her mother's condition. They met at a quiet cafe on a gray Saturday afternoon, and Rebecca could immediately tell from her aunt's face that this was not going to be a simple conversation about logistics. What her aunt told her over the next hour was so shocking, so completely incomprehensible, that Rebecca felt like she was listening to someone describe a stranger's life rather than her own. She learned that Catherine was not her biological mother, but her aunt. She learned that her real mother was the woman sitting across from her at this table, a woman who looked at her with tears streaming down her face and said she was sorry, so desperately sorry for giving her up, for disappearing from her life, for letting Catherine raise her without ever being honest about where she really came from. Rebecca learned that there was no father who had died in a car accident. There was no tragic love story cut short by fate. There was only a teenage girl who got pregnant and was terrified, and an older sister who stepped in to raise that baby as her own because it seemed like the best solution for everyone involved at the time. Catherine had loved Rebecca completely and genuinely, had been a wonderful mother in every way that mattered, but she had also built their entire relationship on a foundation of lies that she had intended to confess 1 month ago when she called Rebecca on that Wednesday afternoon. Rebecca sat there in the cafe, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath her, like everything solid in her life had suddenly turned to smoke. She thought about that missed call, pulled out her phone and scrolled back through her call history until she found it. October 16th at 2:37 in the afternoon. She stared at it, this simple notification that had seemed so unimportant at the time, and realized that her mother had tried to tell her the truth. Catherine had reached out at the exact moment when she was still capable of explaining, still able to have the conversation that needed to happen, still present enough to answer Rebecca's questions and help her process and hopefully eventually understand why the lies had been told in the first place. But Rebecca had not answered. She had been too busy with work, too focused on spreadsheets and audits and problems that seemed urgent at that moment, but were completely meaningless compared to what her mother had been trying to share with her. And now Catherine was gone in all the ways that mattered. Her mind lost to a disease that had stolen her memories and her ability to communicate, and any possibility of having the conversation that should have happened 4 weeks ago, when she had picked up the phone and tried to reach her daughter, who was too busy to answer. The grief that crashed over Rebecca in that moment was unlike anything she had ever experienced.
It was not just the loss of her mother to Alzheimer's. It was the loss of her entire identity, the shattering of every belief she had held about who she was and where she came from. It was the devastating knowledge that her mother had tried to tell her the truth, and Rebecca had missed that opportunity because she had let a phone call go to voicemail without a second thought. It was the realization that she would never get to ask Catherine the million questions that were now flooding her mind. Would never get to hear her mother's explanations and justifications and apologies. Would never get the closure that could have come from having that difficult but necessary conversation while Catherine was still capable of having it. Rebecca's aunt tried to answer what questions she could, tried to fill in the blanks and provide context and help Rebecca understand the circumstances that had led to this decades-long deception. She explained that Catherine had not told the truth out of cruelty or malice, but out of love and fear, wanting to protect Rebecca from feeling abandoned or unwanted, wanting to give her a stable childhood without the complications of knowing her mother was really her aunt and her real mother had given her away. She said that Catherine had always planned to tell Rebecca eventually, but the right time never seemed to come. And then, suddenly 30 years had passed, and the lie had calcified into something that felt impossible to undo without destroying everything. But none of these explanations could ease the ache Rebecca felt, the profound sense of loss and betrayal and missed opportunity that consumed her in the weeks and months that followed. She visited Catherine regularly at the care facility, sitting beside a woman who sometimes recognized her and sometimes did not, trying to reconcile the mother she had known with the aunt she actually was, grieving for the relationship they could have had if only the truth had been told sooner. She tried to build some kind of connection with her biological mother, the aunt who had given birth to her and then stepped back to let her sister raise her. But it felt awkward and forced, like trying to create intimacy with a stranger just because genetics said they should feel close. The missed call haunted Rebecca in ways that became almost obsessive. She would stare at it in her call history, this simple line of data that represented the moment when everything could have been different. If she had just answered. If she had just stepped away from her desk for 10 minutes to talk to her mother. If she had just prioritized that call over the work that had seemed so important, but was really just routine tasks that anyone could have completed. She played out alternate scenarios in her mind constantly, imagining what Catherine would have said, how the conversation would have unfolded, how different everything would be now if she had just picked up the phone. This is where the story settles into its painful truth, where Rebecca has to learn to live with the weight of a choice she did not know she was making, and consequences she could never have anticipated, when she let that call ring through to voicemail on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. Rebecca learned that some missed calls are not just missed calls. Sometimes they are missed opportunities for truth, for healing, for having conversations that can never be recovered once the moment passes. She learned that the people we love sometimes carry secrets they are trying to find the courage to share. And if we are not available when they finally gather that courage, the window might close forever. She learned that being busy is not actually a valid excuse for missing the moments that matter most. That work and obligations and daily stresses are rarely as important as we convince ourselves they are in the moment when we choose them over connection with the people we love. The truth that Catherine had tried to share was shocking and life-altering, but what hurt Rebecca most was not the revelation itself, but the fact that she had to learn it from someone else after her mother was no longer capable of explaining it herself. She had been robbed of the chance to hear Catherine's voice, telling her the truth, to see her mother's face as she finally unburdened herself of this secret, to ask questions and express hurt and anger and confusion, and eventually perhaps work toward understanding and forgiveness. All of that was stolen by a disease that progressed too quickly, and a missed phone call that had seemed insignificant at the time.
but had actually been the most significant call Rebecca would ever receive. Rebecca eventually came to understand that Catherine had done what she thought was best. That the lies had been told out of love, even if they were still lies. That her mother had been a good parent in all the ways that truly mattered, even if the foundation of their relationship had been built on fiction. She learned to have some relationship with her biological mother, though it would never be what it might have been if the truth had been told from the beginning. She learned to live with the complexity of having two mothers, one who had given birth to her and one who had raised her, both of whom loved her in their own complicated ways. But she never stopped thinking about that missed call. It became a permanent reminder of how fragile our opportunities for connection really are, how quickly circumstances can change, how essential it is to answer when people reach out, because you never know what they might be trying to tell you. Rebecca became someone who always answered her phone after that, no matter how busy she was, no matter what else seemed urgent in the moment. She could not go back and answer the call from her mother, could not recover that lost opportunity, could not hear the truth from the person who should have told her. But she could make sure she never missed another important call. Never let work or convenience or distraction keep her from being available when someone needed to reach her. The missed call from a month ago was meant to tell Rebecca that there was a secret, a truth that had been hidden for over 30 years, an explanation that would turn her entire understanding of her life upside down. Her mother had tried to share that burden, tried to come clean before it was too late, tried to give Rebecca the gift of honesty, even though it would be painful. But Rebecca had not answered, and the moment had passed, and the opportunity was lost forever in the fog of a disease that stole her mother's mind before the truth could be properly told. This story is a reminder to all of us that missed calls sometimes carry weight we cannot see through a phone screen. That the people in our lives sometimes have things they need to tell us that cannot wait. That being available for connection is more important than almost anything else we fill our days with. We cannot know which calls are routine and which ones are life-changing until we answer them. We cannot predict when someone we love will reach out with something urgent or important or devastating that needs to be shared. All we can do is answer when they call, make time when they need us. Be present for the moments that matter, even when we do not know in advance that they matter. Do not let your missed calls become your permanent regrets. Do not let busy become the reason you miss the conversations that need to happen. Do not let later turn into never, because the person who tried to reach you ran out of time or courage or clarity before later arrived. Answer your phone. Return those calls. Be available for the people you love before the opportunity to connect with them disappears in ways you cannot predict or prevent. Learn from Rebecca's story and do not make the same mistake she did. Do not let work or distraction or the assumption that there will always be another chance keep you from answering when someone reaches out with something they desperately need to tell you, because a missed call from a month ago might have been meant to tell you something that would change everything. And you will never know what it was unless you start answering when people try to reach you. Do not let that be your story. Do not let a missed call be the thing that haunts you for the rest of your life. Answer the phone. Be present. Be available. Before it is too late, and all you have left is a notification in your call history and the devastating knowledge that someone tried to tell you something important, and you were not there to listen.